Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Is Not Hunting Hitler. No, this is a new Netflix series. And it is called Hitler and the Nazis Evil on Trial. That is right. We are going to be watching that. It's going to be it's different. It's a lot it's done by Netflix, so honestly, it's a little more history based than the actual of what we were doing with Hunting Mustache Man. That being said, welcome everybody who's here. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Tim says, "Hi, Joe. What's up, buddy? How you doing?" Shout out to everybody yeah. The first episode is good. I really liked it. I have to be careful, not with this episode, but the next one's got a little bit of a nudity, just a little bit, not a lot. It's really not a lot. But that being said, so shout out to everybody who's here. Seriously. Um, it did it again. Stupid StreamYards, what are you doing? It's the second time in 2 days it's kicked me out. I don't know why. That's weird. All right, so back to this. All right, let's pull this up because we're gonna go over this. We got a big day coming up. We got stuff coming up with the former president, so that's cool. Let's go.
German resistance is crumbling, and we're in a situation today where anything may happen.
We take you to San Francisco. William L. Shirer reporting.
So Hitler is dead and destroyed like his country that he tried to make the master of the world and ended only by destroy. I must say that in a sense, in a very deep sense, of course, this is a day that I have been waiting for many a year.
Suddenly we got the word, the surrender terms of the United Nations. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Second World War. That is the word we have just received from the White House in Washington, and I didn't expect to hear a celebration here.
It says an estimated 60 million lives were lost during World War II, the most destructive conflict in human history. That is insanity. That's insanity. Holy cow.
Our newsroom in New York, that you can hear what's going on.
Berlin had capitulated. From their holes in the hiding places, the German generals emerged, like beasts ferreted out of their lairs. Goering gave himself up. Goebbels preferred to shoot himself. Now the major war criminals were in the hands of justice.
It says the historic, I'll bring it up because, well, it's paused. I should be fine. The historic Nuremberg trial marked the first time national leaders were prosecuted by an international tribunal for war crimes. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the first time ever.
It was decided to try them in Nuremberg. Nuremberg, where the Nazis ran rampant. Nuremberg, from which the demented Hitler hurled his threats to the world. Nuremberg now lies in ruins and ashes. Here they were brought to answer for their crimes, these warmongers and conspirers against nations, these butchers of whole peoples and plunderers of whole states, these child murderers and slave traders, these 20th century Huns. For all this, they must now answer. The hour of reckoning has come.
It says this is the story of the rise and fall of one of the bloodiest regimes in human history as told by eyewitnesses and historians. This cold opening to this was so cool. I have to be honest that I very much enjoyed the very first episode. And I'm halfway through the second episode. We're not going to do that today. We'll do that sometime next week.
Don't hide your face, Goering. All the world knows you, and the world curses you.
What's crazy is that to this day, had they not gotten over ambitious, they they probably could have taken the world. I'm a firm believer that from the evidence of from HH that they were this close to a nuclear bomb, and it was just the U.S. that beat them to it. Uh, that's terrifying. It's freaking terrifying. If I turn the camera off at any time, it's because I'm taking a drink or I'm taking a bite of something. I haven't eaten lunch yet, so that's why I was a little late.
The man who knows Germany best.
Bear with me,
Broadcasts from
please.
Berlin and elsewhere in Germany during the early days of Nazi aggression were eagerly listened to all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of Berlin Diary, William L. Shirer.
Look at it.
It's all over after 2,319 days of it, nearly 6 years. But not only the German leaders had no sense of responsibility, there was not a word said by any of them when they surrendered about being sorry for their crimes, or feeling any sense of responsibility for having tried to destroy our world.
They weren't sorry. They didn't care.
For me, it was the last chapter of a story that had begun 11 years before, in this very city. When, as my first assignment in Hitler's Germany, I had been sent there at the beginning of September 1934 to cover the annual Nazi Party rally. I had got my first glimpse of Adolf Hitler and his henchmen, Goering, Goebbels, Himmler, and Hess, and launched myself into
It's a little bone chilling. I'm gonna be honest. Listening to all them just cheer that, just constantly chant that. It's a little bone chilling. The term itself doesn't have what it says. It's "Hail to Victory" is not hateful, but the meaning behind it, due to the people who used it, is what makes it hateful.
covering the rise of the Third Reich for the next 6 years.
1945.
Those of their Nazi leaders who had not committed suicide were waiting trial for crimes against humanity. Justice, at long last, had caught up with them.
The complete devastation that was brought by the Second World War was something that people really had to reckon with afterwards. Like, how could there really be justice after something like that? This was why the Nuremberg trials were seen as critical.
The Nuremberg trial lasted 10 months from November 1945 to October 1946.
For the first time in the history of mankind, a court consisting of American, British, French, and Russian judges has been formed to pronounce a verdict on crimes which have had no precedent in human memory.
Crowding the spectators' gallery are 400 newspapermen from every corner of the world.
The atmosphere in the courtroom is tense. Nobody quite knows what to expect. When the defendants walk in, a kind of hush falls over the courtroom as people are staring at them.
This really is the end of the long night of the hideous nightmare, and how the mighty have fallen. The sudden loss of power
Almost didn't.
seemed to have stripped them clean of the arrogance that was their very being in all the years I knew them. How
So these people talking, these are all from different excerpts of from books and newspaper articles and magazines written about all of this. So these obviously the people talking are not actually them, but they're portraying who actually wrote these from the time.
quickly they have become broken, miserable little men. The long Nazi night has given me much to think and write about. All my years I have searched, like so many others, for some meaning.
They're still small.
One of the more
little men.
striking aspects of the Nuremberg trial is who's not in the dock. Hitler's not there physically, but his presence is inescapable.
So this says Austria really quick. It said this is well before the fact. Hold on. Let me back it up, guys. I want to
Physically, but his presence is inescapable.
so Austria 1889.
Every single human being
1889.
has within him or her the potential to be good or evil. And if you look at Hitler's record as a young man, there's really nothing to show that he was going to become this terribly vengeful, hate-filled figure whose whole motivation in life was going to be to exterminate an entire race.
Hitler was born.
That image right there. We all start out like that, and then some of us become heinous and vile human beings. And I use human being lightly in that sense. When you decide to genocide a whole group of people, it's kind of hard to call you a human being.
In Austria, he came from a middle-class family.
Hitler's mother was probably the only person in his life he really loved. She seems to have been a very gentle, kindly person who had to deal with a very difficult husband.
Hitler was brought up fairly strictly. His father beat him, but that was very common at the time.
His father was a customs official who had changed his name from Schicklgruber to Hitler. Can you imagine? People would have had to shout Heil Schicklgruber instead of Heil Hitler.
I don't think that would have caught on as much. Heil Schicklgruber. I didn't know this either. This is something new that I learned just by watching this. I had no idea that his father changed their family name to Hitler.
Hitler was a bit of an oddball in some ways. He liked to read a lot. He had a powerful imagination.
Hitler was not a good student. He was not industrious. He had pipe dreams of becoming a great artist.
Turned down, by the way.
So Hitler moved to Vienna in 1907 in the hopes that he would be studying art at the Vienna Academy of Art. Then he was turned down for admission, which shocked him.
He wanted to become a world-famous artist, but he wasn't actually very good. If you look at some of his paintings, they are mostly townscapes, and he was rejected because he couldn't do people.
So he was rejected from art school. And quite frankly, I didn't know this. I knew that he was rejected from art school, but I didn't know he was rejected on the basis he could not draw people. He drew landscapes. He drew castles. He didn't. What's up, man? Hey, how you doing, Dempsey? It's good, dude. It's good. We're reviewing this. This one's interesting. It's interesting. It's a little bone chilling because they've added they've taken old footage of basically Nazi events and parades and all that stuff, and they've added where many were in black and white for television at the time. They've added color to them, and it's kind of creepy. It's kind of creepy. It brings it to life in a way that makes it really real. It's weird.
It's quite significant in a way. He couldn't really paint people. He was forced to eke out an existence by selling paintings that he copied from postcards.
He lived for a few years in a men's shelter in a northern part of Vienna.
He lived a rather hand-to-mouth existence. At that time, German-speaking Austria was part of a much bigger political entity, the so-called Habsburg or Austro-Hungarian Empire.
It was a very nationally and ethnically diverse.
So this is back before. This is before World War I. This is back when the lay of the land, there were still many empires around. So as you can see, we have the Austro-Hungarian Empire, we have the German Empire, we have the Russian Empire. things were very different then. Real quick, Dempsey says, disturbing stuff. It is crazy to think that another iteration of this man could be forming right now. You never ever know where an individual like this is ever going to come from. We also said too, as one united world, never again. I can tell you a place right now on this planet where there are concentration camps. They just call them re-education camps. Re-education. It's in China. The Uyghur Muslims. They stripped all their possessions. They took their wife and children away, and they threw all the men in a camp. They also castrated them too, so that's super. It's great. It's good stuff, right? We said never again, but right now, it's just not 6 million Jews or an additional 4 million, gypsies and all sorts of other people who are considered less than, which yes, did happen, and Christian, yeah. If you're, so it's different.
Diverse empire, and in the early 20th century, almost all the major nations were in some sense trying to pull away from it and assert their own autonomy.
The Hungarians, the Czechs, the Romanians, all of these different nationalities wanted their own state, not necessarily independent, but certainly self-governing. There's also the German Empire, which was the most important economy in Europe. It was a large, prosperous, industrial.
I mean, just look at this. Look at this landscape. This is something from the time would have been in black and white, and they've retouched it due to the technology we have now that it is in color. It's incredible to see. This is like looking into a time capsule. It's wild. It's wild.
Power.
And there was developing what was called a pan-German ideology, an all-German ideology among German Austrians who had nothing but contempt for the other ethnicities within the empire and really wanted to break away from it and unite themselves to the German empire next door.
There is a pervasive culture among many on the right in the city of Vienna that the German people are superior to other.
Okay, he said on the right. This is not the modern terms as we understand right and left in today's world. It does so. I know that people who are disingenuous or uneducated try to elate this all the time. Right and left politics at that time, and even in Nazi Germany, are not the same as they are today. You'd have to flip them if you really wanted to. So the far right of then would have to flip, which they would be the far right because they want to put people in jail. You'd have to peg them as the far left in today's world. I know that people argue that all the time. You can argue it all you want. You're just wrong. You compare ideology to ideology to ideology. The far right of then lines up with our far left today of putting people in jail, telling people that they're less than, saying that if you believe this certain thing that we hate you. That's what the far left of today does. And it's all heinous. I'm not supporting the far right of today either. They suck too. It's like, but there's always going to be fringe extremes in every society on this planet. Dempsey says that is what happens when you financially break your country, but leave it to its own devices. Yes. Yes. The people get desperate and they're likely to follow someone trying to help. Yes. Yes.
People, such as the Czechs, such as the Jews.
Anti-Semitism, or hatred of Jews, had been around for a very long time in Europe. But
it has always been around. It was not specifically a Nazi thing. Jews have been blamed for many things in Europe for centuries. This is not a new concept. Unfortunately, with what's going on in Palestine, it seems that we haven't learned shit. We haven't learned shit.
New kind of anti-Semitism emerged in the late 19th century, and fringe political agitators began to write tracts which expounded this racist view of the Jewish race as being subversive, as plotting everywhere to undermine civilization, to destroy hard-working small businessmen.
There are a number of prominent politicians in Vienna who were not only political anti-Semites, but they're also talking about
So Vienna is not even in Germany. We're not even talking about Germany right now. We're talking about Vienna, Austria. Politicians in Vienna, Austria, blaming the Jews for problems.
racialized anti-Semitism.
Karl Lueger was mayor of Vienna, called himself and calls his movement Christian.
Yes, dude. Not just anti-Semitism. Quote, anyone different from me in any way has always been a thing. Human beings are tribal. It's because we're mammals. We're technically animals. And that's how we survived, because when we used to have, sticks and rocks and stuff like that, sometimes the people down that way wanted to come and take your crap, and you had to fight them off. So human beings naturally are afraid of what they don't understand. It's just ingrained in us. It just is. That's why kids think there's monsters under the bed, because guess what? As human beings, when we used to sleep, not in walled houses and stuff like that, we were very vulnerable. Monsters are in the dark. Monsters walk among us.
And social, and anti-Semitism was a key element of it. Hitler was watching all this as a young man, and to some extent drawing inspiration from it.
Hitler from early on despised Austria and the multinational Habsburg Empire. He saw himself above all as German and not as Austrian. He thought
even though he was Austrian,
Germany was the great nation.
He lived in a kind of fantasy world. Hitler spent more money than perhaps was wise on going to the opera. He was particularly taken with the music dramas of Richard Wagner.
He thought Wagner presented Germany that he wanted to aspire to, a Germany of gods and heroism and great leaders. This music spoke to him, the messages spoke to him.
One of the first Wagner operas.
I wonder if I'm going to get hit for a claim on that one. I mean, I know I'm going to get hit for a claim from Netflix but again, sorry. If I go off camera for like, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds, I didn't get a chance to eat lunch. I'm taking single bites in between because I got another stream later on. A certain president's doing a press conference, is doing stuff. We're going to be covering that too. So again, shout out to everybody who's here. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate you watching. Dempsey says, well, the entire world is trying to kill you at all times, especially the further back you go in time. Strength in numbers is prudent. Yes, that is spot on. Dempsey says, Wagner is amazing, but Vivaldi is superior. I don't actually have a leaning either way on that one. So
Hitler sees is Lohengrin, a romantic opera composed in the mid-19th century, where the great hero Lohengrin more or less sacrifices himself for the nation.
Also, shout out to all the actors over history who have played this individual, knowing he's probably one of the most hated individuals on the planet. It's like, imagine going to that audition. You're like going, you see that audition, you're a younger actor or an actor who's inexperienced. You're like, oh, you kind of look like maybe him. Like, going, let's go audition for that. It's like, and then you have to walk around for a couple of weeks looking like that guy, and everybody's like, going, are you wearing that on purpose? It's like, you're like, I'm an actor, sorry, bro. Leave this stuff. Wagner's work is considered public domain. That's true. It is old enough. I think it's like anything like 100 years or older is considered public domain, but the Netflix special is not. It's so again, Netflix is not taking me down yet for copyright claims, so that's cool.
The powerful music by Wagner nurtured Hitler's idea that he himself would one day become a great heroic leader.
Attention!
So it says Nuremberg trial, 21 November 1945.
Hitler would one day become the dictator of Germany and then the conqueror of most of Europe. But it must be added at once that he was one of the cruelest, most bloodthirsty, and barbarous tyrants who ever lived. He plunged the destructive wars in history.
That was a weird glitch. I don't know why it did that. The sound cut out, but the video still played.
Robert Jackson, who serves as the chief American prosecutor at the Nuremberg trial, is at the time of the trial an associate justice on the United States Supreme Court. His opening statement at Nuremberg in particular is simply a masterpiece.
The privilege of opening the first trial in history for crimes against the peace of the world imposes a grave responsibility. The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated.
You're not wrong. It is odd that Hitler was put on trial, but Stalin was not. You know, you know what? It's probably because the world, quite frankly, didn't care what Stalin did to his own people. They said it's not our problem, but Hitler decided to try to march around the world, bringing the bloodshed to people's front doors. And I think maybe that's why it was probably more prominent. I don't know. But let's just say this. None of it's good. Also at the same time too, look, communism has killed hundreds of millions of people throughout history, whether it be in the Soviet Union, in China, in North Korea, like going everywhere communism has been tried. It has killed a total of hundreds of millions of people. You could combine the numbers from World War I and World War II of the lives lost on all sides, encompassing everything, and still would not touch communism on how many people it's killed. So, but there are kids in this world that think communism, well, it just wasn't done right. Well, it's been tried numerous times. It's never going to be done right because people are greedy. Capitalism just evens the playing field as like none others have done before. I'm not saying capitalism is perfect. I'm not saying what we need that the United States is a constitutional republic. We're not perfect either. This is the best experiment in the history of the world. But communism has been tried numerous times and it has killed hundreds of millions. It's in the neighborhood of like 250, 300 million people worldwide. It's astronomical.
So malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored because it cannot survive their being repeated.
What Jackson does in his opening statement is he makes plain the moral stakes of this trial and the kind of symbolic message that the Allies are trying to send with this trial. This is not just political justice. This is the full force of the law being mobilized to try to punish and bring some measure of justice for some of the worst horrors that humanity has ever seen.
I think we have heard today one of the great trial addresses of history. The words ringing out so that they match the hopes and the aspirations and the great challenge of this moment. As a human being, I would have preferred to have...
Okay, was just checking real quick for my next stream, which is coming up in literally 55 minutes. So we're gonna wrap this one up in time for that, probably 5-minute break. Then I'm gonna be jumping on with the live event with in Las Vegas for Donald Trump. So because again, his conviction is history in the making, so it's very relevant.
I've escaped this long German chapter in my life, but as a journalist and eventual writer, I did not regret it.
William Shirer is an outside witness from the inside. And that's a huge advantage that most historians don't have, because historians write about the past, not the past that they lived in.
Shirer. Also, shout out to whoever is watching on Twitch. My Twitch gets like hardly any views, but thank you for watching. I just don't necessarily do the stuff that Twitch likes.
Shirer really was present at the confluence of a lot of new things from 1934 to 1940. He's really present at the early stages of the Nazi regime. A lot of his broadcasts were among the really pioneering international radio news broadcasts.
I've seen what happens to nations and peoples that Hitler conquers. I've seen how he destroys them with a brutality, with a ruthlessness that you have to see to really comprehend.
Watching those bombs fall and watching the fire is insanity. It's insanity that even to this day, look, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I don't like war. I think war sucks. Some wars are necessary, but you see the brutality, you see the thing that you see what the results. Nobody wins. Nobody wins in war. Technically a nation wins, but guess who loses every single time? The people. Innocent people lose every time. And that includes what's going on in Ukraine and in Gaza right now. Is somebody somewhat morally right in these things? Yes. But war should be stopped as quickly as possible. Because it sucks.
One personal word here, if I may. I want to assure you that I am not one of those armchair civilians who has come to incite you with a lot of fake stories about the enemy. The truth about him needs no adornment.
While my grandfather is reporting from Nazi Germany, he would write in his diaries about what he was seeing and all the things he couldn't say in his broadcast. Those were uncensored accounts, day by day. After the war, he kept writing. He really had a sense of where history was going and the implications of what was happening. He thought democracy was important and it was always in danger.
Here it goes.
What happened in...
I do a lot of head movements when I do stuff. Yeah, I think it pisses my camera off. And I do stuff like this and hand gestures, and it's like, what's up there, Grimsbar? Holy shit, dude, haven't seen you in a while. How you doing, man? It's good to see you. Yeah, apparently I do a lot of spirit fingers and stuff and move my head, and it's like my camera hates me. So whenever it gets blurry, I'm like, what the fuck?
In Nazi Germany.
So here you go. This is again one of the individuals that is documented history, the rise and fall of the Third Reich, a history of Nazi Germany by William L. Shirer. I think I said that right, Shirer.
Germany. It doesn't happen suddenly. Changes are very slow and gradual. My grandfather always told us to pay attention.
Yes. Pay attention. When a political opponent is tried with the crime, it's weird. That kind of stuff happened before the rise of the Third Reich. I'm just saying, read the room. You don't have to like the former president. You don't have to. I'm not asking you to. But when you try to throw him in jail numerous times, something's up with that. It's not the America that we used to know. But there are Americans who are seeing it, and we have the larger majority. Our universities are infested with these horrible ideas that if you say one thing, if you say this, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're a bigot, you're transphobic, you're the worst things in history. And it's like, I didn't like a Disney movie. Like, are you serious? Or like, oh, well, I thought maybe this guy on the political side had a good idea. I kind of like that. They're like racist, and you're like, what? What are you talking about? And then they turn around and they call black people who like a certain former president. They call them Uncle Toms. Weird. Where have I heard that before? Oh, it was after Democrats who didn't want to end slavery. Yes, this is politically accurate. I'm still going to make that series about it. I'm going to do a 10-part series about the Democratic Party, and I'll do the same thing for the Republican Party, because two-party systems, in my opinion, aren't the greatest. Republicans voted unanimously to end slavery. Democrats opposed it 2-1. 2-1. Read your history, folks. Read your history.
In the spring of 1913, when he was 24 years old, Hitler left Vienna for Munich in Germany. The principal reason he left Austria was to escape military service. For 3 years, since his 21st birthday, he had dodged it. He had, however, one thing, an unquenchable confidence he would still make good. Just how? He did not yet know.
Yes, Dempsey. This is an actual quote from history. Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Stalin's secret police chief, sorry, I'm going to butcher this. I wish, Lavrenti Beria. So I know I butchered that. Andy says, but Ryan, what about the Southern strategy? Yeah, the great swap, as they call it. It's a lie. And I'm not saying that one political party is better than the others, even in today's world, because most of them are corrupt. Come on, camera. Many of them are very, very corrupt. I stand with politicians that stand with the people and say, I want what's best for the people, and they do it. They do it. That's what I like. Grimm's Bar says, if I recall correctly, World War have a three. Why we? So I have 3 or 4 years until 100% of the money borrowed will be used to pay interest. I don't think I understand what WLWE is. Sorry, Grim. I'm a common sense man. I'm not a massive intellectual as some of these people, which is weird because a lot of people have a lot of massive intellectual who are massively intellectual. They have zero common sense, like zero. We have okay. Okay, all right. Andy says Dixiecrats didn't switch racist as his dog whistle. Yes, it was a typo. Okay, my bad, dude. I told you. It's like I tell people, like, going, I'm not I'm not slow, but I'm slightly retarded. So yeah, Dempsey says, I'm not a smart man. Forrest Gump and Ryan. That's true. Saying that our GDP will be less than the interest on the loans. Yes, it's true. It's true. Stop spending taxpayer money on bullshit now. And that goes for, look, and I pissed so many people off today on Twitter about talking about because it's a certain month, about my idiot governor posted, this is what true equality, and then of course it had Colorado, and it's like the pride flag behind it. And I'm like, no, this is the real flag of freedom and equality for all. And I put the U.S. flag, and it's getting just smashing the like button on that thing. But like there are people, and they're like going, that's not true. It's like, no, it's true. They're remember in 2019 when protesters in Hong Kong were waving the U.S. flag against China, and it's terrorism. It's complete fascism against people with. It's like these are historical events. They're true. They were waving U.S. flags.
Coming of World War I in 1914 offered Hitler an escape from all the failures and frustrations of his personal life.
For decades, all of the great powers of Europe, Russia, Britain, France, Austria-Hungary, had various alliances and treaties that started to break down by the beginning of the 20th century.
World War I is caused by a lethal.
Yes. So they can, well, I mean, even, yeah, so they can shut down your bank account. They can turn off your cards and say, well, your social credit score lately has not been the greatest. We really need you to fix your bad ideas. And it's like going, dude, freedom of speech, fuck you. That's what it is. Freedom of speech, fuck you. And I know too, there are people on Twitter too. Learn what freedom of speech means. Oh, it's against a tyrannical government. Well, guess what? Large corporations are, in a sense, basically a large government that tells you the rules and regulations of what you can do with your money, right? I mean, just look at Alexa, the stupid thing from Amazon, Alexa, who shut those people out of their smart house because they said inappropriate things that could have been mildly discriminatory, and Alexa shut the house down. They locked them out of their own house. That's a real story. I might actually cover that on this History Channel because, quite frankly, it's insane. It's insane. That's stepping on people's freedom of speech.
Lethal cocktail. In 1914, there was a very fragile European alliance system, but you also have territorial imperialist ambitions of some powers, national pride, and militarism that facilitated the outbreak of World War I.
World War I broke out because the heir to the Habsburg throne, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, had been assassinated with his wife.
They were assassinated by Bosnian Serbian terrorists. Tension immediately sprang.
Real quick, Grim, no, I'm here again. Like I said, eating off camera because haven't had a chance to eat yet, and I got two long streams today, so the next one's probably gonna be like 3 hours guaranteed. Did Amazon get sued into the dirt over that? No, they didn't. You know why? Because it happened in a with a liberal group of people. They said, well, maybe we said some stuff that was inappropriate. We just never thought that we'd get locked out of our house over it. Yes, they capitulated to the large corporation Amazon for curating speech. So no, they didn't sue Amazon. They said, okay, well, maybe we did something wrong. That's cult thinking. Look, the what is it? It's not the NAACP. What's the one that was founded after World War II by the Jewish population? Bunch of Jewish lawyers. Anyway, they said, you know what? It is freedom of speech, and it is everyone's right to say things, to say something that I disagree with. If I want to say, and this I don't give a shit if this gets clipped because it's stupid. If I want to say that Adolf Hitler was the best guy in the history of the world, that's a dumbass take. That's stupid. But it's my freedom of speech to say so. And it is the freedom of speech of everybody out there on the other side of this camera to say, that's retarded. You're an idiot. Are you serious? What the hell is wrong with you? He killed millions. Get out of here with that. That's freedom of speech. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't support. Look, if there are people who want to go fly, want to stand on the capital of my state with the Nazi flag, you've got the right to do so. But quite frankly, I'm the kind of a person who says history will judge you, and so will God. And I would rather have history judge me than God, because he ain't gonna judge you real nice. You being hateful to people like that. So, no, I support everybody's right to freedom of speech, even if it's evil. Where I draw the line is when your freedom of speech ends when you call for violence against other people. say, I hate these people. We need to rise up and we need to hurt them. That's not freedom of speech. It's craziness. It's craziness.
Brings up in Europe.
Be right back.
The Russian Empire said, we back the Serbs. The German Empire said, we back the Austrians. The French said, we'll back the Russians. And the British said, we'll back the French. So the two sides lined up.
Within a few weeks, you have a situation where all of these major European powers are at war.
Letztens im Frieden überfällt uns der Feind. Darum auf zu den Waffen. Wir werden diesen Kampf bestehen, auch gegen eine Welt von Feinden.
So basically said, we will stand against our enemies. Grim real quick says, speaking of judgment, the tree of knowledge should be renamed to the tree of judgment. Adam judged Eve, Eve the snake, the snake god, and God, all three of them. Yeah, it's true. So the tree of knowledge, obviously the snake tricked Eve into eating. Eve tricked Adam into eating, and then God judged all three and cast them out. So it in my opinion, I am not a devout Christian, but I have a very spiritual faith with Christianity. I don't necessarily like the whole organized, like you have to go to church. Like I don't support that necessarily. But yes, it is only God's place to judge. It's not ours. It's not mine. I don't get to judge you for saying something. I can think you're wrong. Just like people who said that the U.S. flag is not a symbol of freedom and hope and equality for all. It's the most prominent one on this in the history of this planet. Is it a flawed flag? Yes, it's been flown in many flawed ways. But the hope behind it remains the same, for freedom of all man, which is what we used to say, right? Meaning of all of mankind, freedom for all of mankind. Dempsey, one of these things is not like the others. That's funny.
When World War I breaks out, there's a general sense in Europe that it's an excitement. And there was this idea that it was just a big, fun sports event. I mean, young men sign up all over these countries so that they won't miss out on the adventure. Nationalism.
Britons wants you. I like that.
Had become very, very important in the European psyche. And all of a sudden, everybody looks around and says, we're in this together. Hitler feels this energy, this momentum, and he wants to be involved in it. He wants to take part in it.
There's a famous photograph greeting the outbreak of war. Hitler's there, ecstatic. And so he volunteers to join the Bavarian army, which was part of the German army.
He refuses to serve in the multiracial army of the Habsburg Empire because Hitler sees himself as German.
And
Grim says real quick, a tangent here. That report, women, Megan, or what in law tube adjacent sphere rebuked internet anonymity, that flies in the face of our founding. Imagine the federal. Yes, no, it does. You have the right. You have the right of, and again, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. Assembly is, and again, this goes counterintuitive to Black Lives Matter and Antifa. You don't have the right to burn shit down. That's not assembly. Assembly is a protest. Peaceful. Assembly is peaceful protest. So yeah, no, I mean, you have the right. Look, if I wanted to be Jim Bob 360 and stream like this every single time and be like, going, geez, when did Taylor become Jim Bob 360? I don't know. I have the right to do it. Nobody gets to tell me I don't. And if you think that you don't have the anonymity to speak freely without showing your face, you're wrong. You're just wrong. And she's a lawyer, and she's wrong. And it's not the first time that Megan from the law tube sphere has been wrong. Look, she has older white liberal women vibes, and these are the ones that there was a group of them that in front of Trump Tower they wrote all what 34 counts of felonies. Count 1 guilty, count 2 guilty, in chalk on the sidewalk. Like, are you serious? Yeah, Megan Fox, thank you. She's not a lawyer. I thought she was. What is she, a paralegal? I don't know how you get in law tube without having a background in law. So maybe she's a paralegal. I don't know. Anyway, again, it's your right. It's your right to say some dumbass crap like this, but it's wrong. It's wrong because the people have the right to anonymity. It's just the way it is. Sorry, fam.
It's a chaotic situation. Thousands and thousands of young men are volunteering, and the authorities can't really check their papers properly, so he gets in, though he's not actually a Bavarian or German.
Okay, so if she's a journalist, I don't think a lawyer, could be wrong. Okay, so well, I thought that what's her name? The other one who kind of got in trouble, she disappeared for a while, was a journalist. I thought Megan was an actual lawyer. Can't think of her name. Anyway, semantics aside, back to this.
For Hitler, war is glory. War is something fantastic. War is going to be good for the German nation.
Hitler suddenly has a purpose. He has
Farron,
found
thank you.
a purpose.
Thank you. Okay, so fair and balanced and Megan Fox are journos. Ew. Sorry, I'm not a huge fan of journalists because, quite frankly, the majority of them, they cast stones at people. They say horrible things about people. They use their pen to be like, going, I have the freedom to write this, but you don't have the freedom to say that. And it's like going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Not saying they're bad people, but they've had some really bad taste. Both of them. Fair and Balanced and Megan Fox, yeah. Some bad takes. Also, at the same time, I hope Nick's getting help. I covered one video on Nick Rekieta, one video when it first happened. I'm gonna, it's died down, which is great. I hope Nick gets help. I really do. I want Nick to get help, so for his family, so he can be, get back to where he was. I don't ever want to see somebody being torn down. That sucks.
For his unglamorous, rather miserable life.
The coming of World War I in 1914 offered Hitler an escape. It came, he later said, as a deliverance from the distress that had weighed upon me during the days of my youth. I am not ashamed to say that I sank down on my knees and thanked heaven.
It was the war to end all wars, but this is something that the boys going off to war in 1914 have no concept of. There was no understanding of the terrible technological changes that had taken place. The horrors of mechanized warfare, things like the creation of machine gun, poison gas being used, the creation of tanks, the creation of flamethrowers, the creation of planes dropping bombs, and all of these other developments which are there to massacre human beings. They're there to destroy human flesh.
Hitler was a runner who carried messages from the regimental quarters to the front line and back again.
Hey, Wade, how's it going, buddy? Yeah. freedom of the press was the freedom of mass communication, not freedom of writing in a paper. The press was created, and they started sharing what the king was up to. The king dismantled them. It's true. It's true. And now the press goes the other direction. They espouse for other. I So I have another show coming up at 1 p.m. Wade, which is in 30 minutes. So I'm probably going to be on that stream for a while, covering the former president's speech in Las Vegas. And then after that, it's gonna be family time. Family time's important. We always got to do that. So probably, dude. Sorry.
For 4 years, he fought, carried messages, underwent dangers, and railed against anybody who would betray the war or disbelieve in it.
Dempsey, thank you for being here, dude. Seriously, I'll see you next time, man. You're good, dude. Appreciate you. Everybody give a shout out to Dempsey because he's a good dude. He's yes, they will. And take care of everyone. Dempsey's a good guy. We'll most likely see him tomorrow night for House of the Dragon season 1 finale. That's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be good.
During the war, some of the shells fired are gas shells, poison gas, mustard gas. It's very deadly and very dangerous. And Hitler is attacked, and he's hospitalized to recover.
On the dark autumn Sunday morning of November 10th, 1918, a pastor came bearing unbelievable news for the wounded soldiers. Kaiser Wilhelm II, the Emperor of Germany, had abdicated and fled to neutral Holland, the pastor told them. The German army would surrender to the Allies at Compiègne in France. The war was lost. The pastor began to sob. So did the blinded Corporal Hitler.
At one blow, 4 years of his life had been deprived of meaning. They'd been destroyed. Most people believed Germany was winning. That's because the German military government had, all the way up to within a few weeks of the defeat, insisted that Germany was winning. They had concealed the deep problems of the German army from the populace at large.
It becomes clear to Germany's army commanders that they have been unquestionably defeated on the battlefield. So the high command draws the only rational lesson they could draw, which is that they need to get out of the war as quickly as possible. And this meant that the imperial government collapsed. The Emperor of Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II, abdicated.
World War I fundamentally transforms Germany. Germany ceases being an empire. Germany ceases being a monarchy. Germany in 1918 is turned into a liberal democracy that came to be known as the Weimar Republic.
Okay. Liberal democracy is not the same thing. So liberal democracy, also known as the Weimar Republic, is not the same thing as a constitutional republic. A democracy is something that is basically mob rule. You vote on everything. The mob gets the vote. The mob carries the vote. It's one reason that we have so many people in this country who are like, oh, well, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump did. She got the popular vote. That's not a thing. In a constitutional republic, a democratic republic, a representative republic, it is not a thing. I don't give a shit if you have 20 million votes more than your predecessor, than the other guy. If he gets the electoral college, if he gets more votes, more electoral votes, he wins or she wins. That's it. The states are a direct democracy. This country is a representative, democratic, constitutional, as I prefer to say it, republic. That's how it works. So yes, for all the people in this dumbass country saying, hey guys, the popular vote, let's get rid of the electoral college and crap like that. No. It's not how it works. Germany tried it before the Third Reich. Just saying.
Die Monarchie ist zusammengebrochen. Es lebe das Meer. Es lebe die Deutsche Republik.
The Weimar Republic was largely led by a coalition of the Social Democratic Party. These are sort of mostly leftist groups and many Jewish politicians.
So it's up to the new government to sign the armistice.
Oh no, she said the quiet part out loud.
In a railroad car in France. The Social Democrats are essentially left holding the bag.
Then comes the Treaty of Versailles in June of 1919 with no German involvement. The treaty took from Germany about 13% of its pre-war territory.
The victors put horrible reparations on Germany to make Germany take all of the war guilt. The winning powers accused Germany of having the most expansive aims, but most Germans were aghast at the idea that they were supposed to take on the war guilt, which they saw as a part of a big international situation and not German aggressive war aims.
The Treaty of Versailles was so upsetting to Germans, and it basically served as a national consensus. The rejection of the Treaty of Versailles, the rejection of this punitive peace, the rejection of the reparations, that was something pretty much everyone across the political spectrum could agree on.
Weird. They called it reparations. But that's what it was called when the Treaty of Versailles was signed, was reparations. Did reparations work in pre-war, in pre-Third Reich Nazi Germany? No, it didn't. It actually disenfranchised people to be hateful and because they were struggling. So again, these far left talking points in today's world, direct democracy didn't work, led to Nazi Germany, the Third Reich. Reparations didn't work, led to not the Third Reich and Nazi Germany. These are talking points that, quite frankly, nobody knows in today's world because they don't know history. It's why I started a damn history channel, because people need to see these things. I'm not a professor from the University of Pennsylvania. She is, and she's the one saying it. And quite frankly, look, I'm going to say this. I've watched the viewers climb and drop as I've talked. If you don't like my opinions, if you don't like the statement of facts that I'm putting before you, of actual historical facts, I don't care. I'm sorry. Then you're the one who has the problem. My opinions, I'm allowed to. Some of them are wrong. I'm wrong quite a bit. Trust me, just ask any ex-girlfriend or any future girlfriend I may have. I'm wrong a lot. This is a woman from the University of Pennsylvania saying this. And she's right. You know why? Because I've read a fucking history book.
But the government reluctantly signed it.
The conservative German army leadership has completely abrogated its responsibility. They basically say, we will not have anything to do with the surrender.
It is, in fact, the military leadership that begins actively promoting the conspiracy theory that Germany did not lose World War I on the battlefield, that it was not defeated militarily, but that it was stabbed in the back by a left-wing Jewish civilian leadership that prevented Germany from winning. This is, of course, absurd.
Hitler firmly believes in this conspiracy theory. Hitler is raging. He is blaming the Jews. He is blaming socialists for undermining the victorious German army.
He found a paranoid explanation. Like Siegfried in the Wagner operas, he thought German troops had been stabbed in the back by the home front.
Hitler claims that his life mission will be to claw back control from the dark forces of history and to make sure that Aryan Germans like Hitler will run the fortunes of Germany and that they will make Germany a great country again.
What makes this inquest significant is that these prisoners represent sinister influences that will lurk in the world long after their bodies have returned to dust. We will show them to be the living symbols of racial hatreds, terrorism, and of violence, and of the arrogance and cruelty of power. They are the symbols of
My spine throbbed today as Jackson used the power of language to build up, hour after hour, his masterly case against the Nazi barbarism. More important to me than the trial itself was the making public by the prosecution of hundreds of tons of secret documents that had been seized by the Allied armies before the Germans had time to destroy them. The Nazi defendants are going to be convicted by their own words, their own records, their own foul deeds.
Also, yes, I did
four
speed it up
charges in
because,
the mind
quite
of the
frankly,
prosecution are all interconnected. Conspiracy, the first count of the indictment, was the glue that was going to hold all of these other charges together. Crimes against peace. The idea is essentially that the prosecution is saying it's illegal under international law to attack your neighbors unprovoked. War crimes, you can't kill civilians, you can't kill wounded POWs, you can't attack hospitals, those sorts of things. And then finally, there's the charge of crimes against humanity, which, like crimes against peace, is a new invention at Nuremberg. And the idea behind crimes against humanity was that there was now an international law against political mass murder of your own citizens. Jackson says that these crimes, they are all derivative of the war itself. If you don't have the war, you don't have the atrocities. And so if we can prevent future wars by using the law, we will prevent all of these kinds of horrors from happening again. World War I basically ended with political chaos and revolutionary ferment in Germany and in Eastern Europe.
The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia created completely mistaken belief, but the widespread belief that there's a connection between communism, or as they said in those days, Bolshevism, and Jews. And this was applied in Germany as well, the idea that democratic politicians were also Jews and communists.
So there's a violence that permeates the early Weimar Republic.
There is a civil war-like atmosphere. It's a hotbed of extreme political polarization. There are several attempts by the political left to impose socialist, communist-style regimes, and right-wing military veterans come together to fight what they see as the left-wing threat.
And the army in...
So hold on. Left-wing individuals come to bring together socialism and communism, and it's right-wing veterans. I'm just saying. It's not me saying it. It is a professor who is saying it. The man's literally an educated professor. I go back. If you want to see the guy, it's this guy. Look, dude, just saying.
Right-wing military veterans come together.
Yeah. Christian, no, so it wasn't that guy. Christian Goschel, author Mussolini and Hitler. Sir, you're going to get called a Nazi.
To fight what they see as the left-wing threat.
And the army in Munich is trying to keep tabs on what's happening politically in the city.
The army leadership is very much interested in what is going on the right-wing fringes of the political spectrum. And they're using Hitler and other fairly small, insignificant figures to gather information on the breadth and scope of the German right.
Hitler starts being sent out as a kind of political spy to look at the meetings of various political groups and report back to the army command on what's going on there. And on one of these occasions, Hitler goes to a meeting put on by a small fringe group that's called the German Workers' Party. And Hitler is supposed to just watch, record what happens, and report back. But what happens at this meeting is the speaker there speaks in favor of Bavarian secession from Germany. And for Hitler, this is absolutely rank treason, and Hitler stands up and unloads on this man in a torrent of angry rhetoric. And the leading figures of this small German Workers' Party are incredibly impressed by Hitler's tirade. One of the leaders, a man named Anton Drexler, comments, "That man's got a mouth on him. We could use him."
The chairman of the German Workers' Party approached him afterwards and handed him a pamphlet and invited him to join.
Hitler decides to leave the German army after 6 years of service. He sees that this party has great potential. This party is actively against the Weimar Republic. This party is actively against liberal democracy. This party is hostile to communism and socialism. This party is hostile to the Jews.
And then pretty quickly, he starts to make a reputation in Munich as the most effective speaker at things like rallies and beer hall meetings and so on for this fledgling German Workers' Party.
To the surprise of all who had come into contact with him, Hitler suddenly revealed a ferocious energy and drive. All the warped ideas which had been bubbling in his strange mind since the lonesome days of hunger in Vienna now found an outlet.
He develops his own distinct rhetorical style.
When he started to speak, this huge voice would somehow come out of this rather frail person, and that gave him a very commanding presence.
Hitler was a genius at tapping into already existing feelings in the German population.
We are talking about resentful army veterans who think that Germany's reputation has been dragged into the mud.
And that was something that Hitler was really good at, riling up the masses for speaking to this resentment and anger that was so pervasive in German society. To read the room and feel the energy and ride that energy to incredible heights.
He began to focus on a number of different messages. One thing that came through very strongly was his hatred of the Jews. It's important to remember that Jews in Germany were only less than 1% of the population, a tiny minority.
He talks about making Germany great again. He rails against the Versailles Treaty.
So this then becomes this maelstrom.
This is one of the reasons that people say that "Make America Great Again" is a horrible thing. Well, President Ronald Reagan used it first. Hitler's not using it in the sense of the way that we use "Make America Great Again." Again, you don't have to like that. You don't have to like the former president. That's cool. It's all good in the hood. It's all good. It's a history channel. We all have to agree. But this is not how Hitler's using it.
Of self-pity and of hatred and of resentment and of watching this great Germany turn into this subjugated, poor nation. Germany had been such an important power, and all of a sudden it's nothing. And so he taps into that.
Eventually, he was able to use this power to force out the original leadership and to get himself named the one clear leader of the German Workers' Party, whose orders would never be questioned. He made it clear that this would not be a democratic or a consensus party, that it would be a leader party.
Yes, Andy.
The party rose quite
Wilson
substantially
refused
after
to sign it.
1921 when Hitler addresses mass meetings talking to 2,000 and more people, making Hitler and the Nazi Party into a regional force. But it is not yet a force that actually has a wider recognition across Germany.
He molds the German Workers' Party into his own party and renames it the Nationalist Socialist German Workers' Party, which is also known as the Nazi Party.
I was wrong. Brain fart.
Hitler adopts the swastika symbol as the Nazi Party
No,
emblem.
the Treaty of Versailles was heinous. It treated Germany horribly. Germany was not to blame for the whole entire World War One. There were many to blame.
Swastika symbol goes back thousands of years.
Ding, ding, ding. Goes back thousands of years. He just took it as a good luck symbol and turned it into a symbol of hate. It's been around for thousands of years. Let's not let 80 years of history maybe taint that. And I did a video about that.
Presenting fortune and peace. Hitler claims that he himself designed the Nazi flag. He claims that the red stands for the socialist aims of the Nazi Party, the white stands for the nationalist aims, and the swastika itself stands for the aspirations of the German people.
Important to have the national on the front there, because if you just had a party called the Socialist German Workers' Party, you would normally think this must be a left-wing party of some kind. Having national in front of that indicated that the party had a mixture of nationalist, more right-wing ideology. The idea was that
it was a lie. It was a lie. Did you hear that? It was a lie. They were very left-wing, but history has labeled them right-wing. They lied to make it look like they had a more right-wing leaning because the right, the people who wanted the freedom, veterans of the war, leaned right. They lied to get them in.
having national in front of that indicated that the party had a mixture of nationalist, more right-wing ideology. The idea
it did not
was that it would be an effort to bring working class people who would typically vote left in some way, socialist or communist, to bring them into a nationalist political group.
It
The
was
Nazi
a
Party
lie.
buys its own newspaper called Völkischer Beobachter or People's Observer, an anti-Semitic newspaper in which Nazi officials peddle their hateful views. The Nazi Party wanted to appeal to the senses. They wanted to appeal to the emotions of German voters through speech, through images, through flags, through songs like Deutschland erwache, Germany awaken.
Deutschland erwachen aus deinem wilden Traum. Geben den Juden in deinem Reich nicht an. Wir wollen kämpfen für dein Auferstehen. Arisches Blut soll nicht untergehen.
It's a horrible song, by the way. It's a heinous song. It says that Aryan blood should not perish. It's gross. Doesn't matter how catchy it is. It's gross. I was being facetious when I was like, it's gross.
Nazism is born out of the ashes of World War I.
World War I.
The First World War certainly saved Hitler. It saved.
This is what happens when you blame a group of people for everything. It's also what happens when you blame a group of people for everything, i.e., the state of Israel. Jews had nowhere to go. They had nowhere to flee, so the state of Israel was made. Was it the right choice? After what happened in World War II? Yeah, maybe. But a group of people was villainized and are still being villainized in today's United States. If you don't agree with me, you're racist, you're sexist, you're homophobic, you're a Nazi, you're all of these things. What happens when you vilify a group of people? They rise up against you and they fight back. This is what happens, America. This is what happens when you have a man, Joe Biden, who stands up there and says that MAGA is the biggest threat to this country since ever. Really?
His life. It sounds perverse to us that war saves someone's life. Without the war, Hitler wouldn't have had a purpose in his life. Without the First World War, we wouldn't be speaking about Hitler today.
This war did not just happen. It was planned and prepared for over a long period of time. The chief instrumentality of cohesion in plan and in action was the National Socialist German Workers' Party, known as the Nazi Party. Some of these defendants were with it from the beginning. The membership took the party oath. This was the oath.
All right, I had to speed it up,
I
guys.
vow inviolable fidelity to Adolf Hitler. I vow absolute
About an
obedience
hour
to
and a
him
half would be
and to
enough,
the
but
leaders
I was
he designates for
wrong.
me.
These subordinate leaders who helped Hitler on the road to political power in Germany were an odd assortment. There is Goering, a famous fighter pilot during World War I and a drug addict. At last, he has achieved his ambition of being number one, though not precisely as he had once dreamed. At first glance, I scarcely recognize him. His faded Air Force uniform, shorn of the insignia and of the medals he loved so childishly, hangs loosely on him, and gone is his old burliness, his old arrogance, his flamboyant air. How a twist of fate, I marveled, could reduce a man to size. Rudolf Hess, for long the closest of all the Nazi aides to Hitler. Now in the dock he struck me as a broken man. His face, so emaciated, it looked like a skeleton. His mouth kept twitching nervously. His once bright eyes stared vacantly about the courtroom. It was the first time I had ever seen Hess out of uniform. Alfred Rosenberg, once the mentor of Hitler and the Nazi movement, he who contributed so much to the Nazis' race hatreds and who helped direct the extermination of the Slav people, is nervous in the dock, lurching forward to catch every word, his hands shaking.
Hitler had a knack of attracting these rather footloose, purposeless nationalists who were looking for someone to represent the cause and take them to victory.
Erzählen Sie dem Gericht, wann und unter welchen Umständen Sie mit Hitler bekannt wurden.
Ich erkundigte mich und hörte, dass ich Hitler hören könnte, da er jeden Montagabend eine Versammlung abhielt. Ich begab mich dorthin. Und dort sprach Hitler über das Zitat von der Sei und die Ablehnung von der Sei. Diese Auffassung war Wort für Wort mir aus der Seele gesprochen. Nun sah ich hier endlich einen Mann, der ein ganz festes und klares Ziel vor Augen hatte.
In the 1920s, because militarism is forbidden, basically, by the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, there are these forces of paramilitary groupings who mobilize in terms of politics, but militarize politics.
The Nazis' band of thugs is particularly notorious and particularly important. They're the group known as the SA, stands for Sturmabteilung in German, or translates basically as stormtroopers. They were known for their brown shirts, and their role was basically to move into areas of German cities and towns, particularly where...
So just for the record, Star Wars, when you made a rainbow-colored, a pride-colored stormtrooper, this is where it came from. Stormtroopers, Nazi Germany, Third Reich. The irony of that.
Working class area.
Gay people would have been thrown in concentration camps, just saying.
Is where the Social Democrats or the Communists might be dominant, and to start engaging in basically gang warfare with the paramilitaries of those parties and literally gain control of territory.
Startete der von Anfang an in die SA jene Mitglieder aus der Partei hineinzubekommen,
True. Yeah,
die
the Warsaw Pact.
und realistisch genug gesinnt waren, ihre Freizeit, ihre ganze
And then
Persönlichkeit
the Third
einzusetzen.
Reich
Es war damals ja für sie sehr schwierig für die braven
in
Männer.
the back.
Some of the early members of the SA
Had
are
he not
military
done
veterans
that?
who believe that the war hasn't ended in 1918. They
Germany
believe that
probably
they have
would
to
have
fight the Weimar Republic, they have to fight the Jews, they have to fight the communists, they have to claw back control so that Germany can be great again.
And Hitler's very much part of that. This is not a shameful war. No, we're going to get our revenge. We're going to get back at them. And lots of them had nowhere to go, nothing to eat, nothing to do with themselves. And these soldiers say, oh, no, this is our savior. This is the guy who's going to bring us back to where we should have been, because we should have won this war.
For a young man who couldn't settle down to civilian life and still wanted action, they wanted violence, they wanted excitement, it's something that you have instant comradeship. You join a unit where you have friends. All you have to do is beat up communists, beat up other political opponents, and for many young men seeking adventure, that's an appealing mixture.
They would also engage in murder and assassination and political violence.
Ernst Röhm was an officer in the German army. He is one of the most violent Nazis.
Wow, dude,
Röhm
I didn't know
molded
that.
the SA into a violent crack troop.
He was one of the people who just could not get enough combat, who couldn't
I
settle
might
down
have
for
to
war.
get you on
He'd
for
been wounded in
episode
World War
two,
I.
dude, so we
His
can-
face
we
was
can
quite badly
talk
scarred.
about this.
Röhm was
That's
quite close to
crazy.
Hitler, and his SA, his brown shirts, were absolutely vital.
Episode 2 will be review will be less rushed because I don't think that the former president will be giving a speech that Sunday. I don't know, maybe, but I'll plan it better. I thought an hour and a half was enough.
In trying to establish Nazi rule by force.
They were a really important instrument of the Nazi disruption of the Weimar Republic. They're helping to promote a crisis atmosphere. They're helping to make Germany ungovernable.
The first 5 years of the Weimar Republic really were a time of nearly constant crisis. Germany really is in the grip of a low-level civil war. Day after day and night after night, there are these complicated, multi-way political gang warfare battles going on in German towns and cities. 1923 was in many ways the most crisis-ridden of those years.
Germany had quite a lot of war debt from the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. And social costs are really high. And the government had to pay war widows, they had to pay insurance for veterans, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of money that needed to be shelled out. And they basically started printing more money. So at this point, inflation becomes astronomical.
The economy has gone completely out of control. $1 US is worth more than 4 trillion marks. Children play with banknotes because paper money has lost its value. People are paid their wages. Every time they go to the shops, prices have gone up that they cannot buy anything.
$1 US is worth more than 4 million marks. What the hell? $1 US more than 4 million German marks. Fraggle Rock.
In this environment of hyperinflation and civil strife and popular discontent.
Oh, I got hit. I got the hit. We lasted a long time. I really pushed the envelope on this one. At least the History Channel got hit. I don't know if the other one got hit, but we're gonna keep moving.
Hitler decides that action is really the only way forward.
The Bavarian government organizes a rally in one of Munich's main beer halls. The Bavarian government is extremely dissatisfied with the national government. They think that the national government is not doing enough to fight back against the political left.
Hitler and several others see this as the opportunity they've been looking for.
And Hitler and his SA stormtroopers march in, and all of a sudden Hitler stands up on a chair, shoots his pistol in the air, and declares the current government deposed.
It was an attempt to overthrow the government through a kind of armed insurrection.
Hitler thinks that he can co-opt the Bavarian government in his quest to seize power in Berlin. And he takes members of the Bavarian government into the side room at gunpoint.
And he extracts promises from the political elites in the room that they are going to play the assigned role in this new dictatorship.
Then Hitler goes back into the main room. He gives a speech in which he appeals to the ultranationalist sentiments of the audience. Some in the audience cheer him, not necessarily because they agree with Hitler, but simply because Hitler is a very effective speaker.
At the same time, the SA, and Floyd in particular, is trying to take over police and military stations, which is where things go sour. The police and military do not play along, and they fail to take over a telephone switchboard, which actually means that the news is getting out. Once the police show up, the political elite say, oh, no, we made those agreements on the journalists. Hitler and the Nazi Party had expected, somewhat unrealistically, that the army and the police would just join in, and that didn't happen. The next day, however, Hitler and the Nazi Party realized that the momentum had been lost, and they don't really quite know what to do. So they come up with this idea that they could maybe just stage a march through Munich, and potentially even take it all the way to Berlin.
And Hitler and his people meet police forces at the Feldhaus.
Grim says recipes was fun while it lasted. Andy says take it easy, y'all. That's true. I cut the audio, so maybe that helped. Yeah, I really pushed the limit today towards the end. Oh, I'm back. Yeah, I really pushed the limit, guys, because, yeah, the history one is still down. I pushed the limit hard on this one, so, because, you know, there it is. History is back, too. So let's finish. We're gonna do audio only. We're gonna get out
in the center of Munich, the very place where he had presumably been photographed on the outbreak of World War I. And there's a firefight.
They were met with a hail of bullets from the Bavarian police. Hitler was pulled to the ground by one of his co-marchers, dislocating his shoulder. Goering was wounded by a bullet, and in order to dull the pain, took morphine and became a morphine addict for the rest of his life, pretty much. Several Nazis were killed, several policemen were killed, and the flush was a pathetic, miserable
mustache guy in a different way, though. In a different show.
The trial, which occurred in 1924, was an incredible reversal for Hitler.
In the trial, Hitler addresses the population in a way that changes the narrative. Not some lunatic with a gun trying to take over the Weimar government from a beer hall, but rather a man with deep-rooted national conscience is appealing to the masses to recognize the dysfunction of the system at large. And instead of denying his responsibility, he actually claims full responsibility and says, yes, this is what I did, but actually the revolutionaries who destroyed the German Reich and cooked up this crazy republic, they are the real criminals.
Talks about the sense of himself as a victim, but also Germany as a victim. We're getting at this sort of core themes, core elements that are pervasive throughout Nazi ideology. Democracy is rotten, it's capitalistic, it's internationalist. And so the Nazi order will help to restore Germany to its greatness once again.
National and international newspapers report the Hitler trial in detail. The beer hall putsch made Hitler and the Nazis famous across the globe.
The media writes about this figure, this charismatic, very interesting figure that emerges through the trial. He becomes the star.
As he is giving his last speech at the end of the trial, he memorably said to the court that they might convict him of treason and they might send him to jail, but the goddess of history with a smile would acquit him, because what he had done for his country, he had done out of patriotism. One of the judges was heard to say at one point, what a splendid chap this Hitler is. And these words had a considerable effect on the court, which gave him the lightest sentence they could possibly give him, which was 5 years in prison.
The sympathetic right-wing judge adds to the sentence that Hitler will be eligible for parole after a mere 6 months. He is sent to Landsberg prison outside Munich. He does not face harsh living conditions in this prison.
He doesn't have to wear any kind of prison uniform. He received food packages from admirers. He was receiving so many packages of sweets and sausages and cakes and things like that that he put on a lot of weight.
And many people showered him with fan mail. I would say this is the first time that women lose their heads over Hitler.
It's sort of like a revolving door of guests coming in and out. He's still a central figure of the Nazi Party. So I think this says a lot about his ability to network, the ways in which he's able to help facilitate his political rise.
He uses his time in prison to write his autobiography, Mein Kampf.
For good or bad, this is what happens when you throw political prisoners in jail. Again, not saying that Make America Great Again is anything like this. The ideologies are not. The Nazis pretended to be normal working German Americans, stuff like that. So it's one of those things that hello Anna. She says, "Hail all." Not sure if I should even say that, given that you went down. No, we're good. We're good. It's just I pushed the boundaries because I got another stream to get to for a certain president, and I really pushed the boundaries of copyright claim. I'm surprised it took him this long to get me. So again, yes, this is where. So Hitler is in jail. He's writing Mein Kampf right now.
Or My Struggle. And it is Rudolf Hess who collaborates with Hitler on Mein Kampf.
Hess is in prison with Hitler, and he was always very much an acolyte, we might say a groupie of Hitler. Hess begins to convey to Hitler some of the lessons that he's learned at the university about the idea of Lebensraum.
For Hitler, Lebensraum, it's translated as living space, but actually it's more complex than that. It's part of 19th century German propaganda ideology. And Hitler has the idea that the cultures that actually exist on these territories in the East, the Slavs who he considered to be subhuman, are sort of bastard cultures. They shouldn't really be there. The Jews are Untermenschen, non-humans. And what we really need to do is go back to this idea of the German mission in the East, where our wonderful, civilized Aryan race will go in and cleanse these lands and then recreate them with these beautiful little German towns and villages.
And so for him, the idea that Germany needed its own hinterland into which to expand and extract resources and build up the kind of arsenal that would enable it to be a global power was of the utmost importance from the beginning.
It's
for Hitler,
buffering. It's
not a question of if but when.
Yeah, it's being weird.
Mein Kampf is not an easy book to read. It is a cocktail of hateful ideas.
One chilling point, he says, if only several thousand of those Jewish miscreants had been gassed in World War I, Germany would be in a better place.
This book is an example of what Germans call a Bildungsroman, a novel or a story about a young person growing to maturity, but with the idea of presenting himself as a political genius.
Given the experience of the Beer Hall Putsch, Hitler realizes that it is impossible to seize power by way of revolution. He decided that as a political strategy, you have to play within the system and then dismantle the system from within.
Hitler realizes that the Nazis can only come to power if they have the legitimacy of as many people in positions of influence as possible. They want to conquer Germany through violence and through the ballot box.
Hitler always lived in a bit of...
Weird. Conquer a country through violence and the ballot box. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before? Let's see. Oh, it's called Antifa.
Dream world. There's very little political realism in Mein Kampf. Here he is on the outer fringes of politics. You could almost say the lunatic fringe of politics. This extremism, the kind of language he uses, is not the language of a parliamentary democracy. And that, I think, should have given people a clue as to how untamable he would be if he got anywhere near power and how he would use it.
It must be remembered that Mein Kampf was no mere private diary in which the secret thoughts of Hitler were set down. By the year 1945, over 6.5 million copies had been circulated.
Like almost everyone else who had bothered to read the Nazi Bible, I had not taken the aims Hitler set down in that hodgepodge of a book seriously. I have often thought subsequently that if more people had digested Mein Kampf and seen it not only as a lot of Nazi gibberish, that history might have taken a different course.
Bevor ich die Frage des
6 million
Gerichtshofes
people bought that
beantworte,
book.
ob ich
6
mich schuldig
million.
oder nicht schuldig bekenne. You must plead guilty.
You villainized a set of people. That's what you did. You villainized a set of people. Don't villainize people. Even if you don't like their ideas. You can say, I think that's hateful. Your ideology is hateful. But dude, you could do better. Don't buy into this crap. Don't villainize the person, villainize the idea. Unless they've done something heinous towards another person, like, assault or, other things like that. It's different, but an ideology inside somebody's head is not hateful. The person is not hateful. I said that wrong. The person's not hateful. The ideology is.
Guilty or not guilty?
Don't other people. This is what you get.
Bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht schuldig.
How can people in the modern age follow, or seemingly follow, one man?
Rudolf Hess.
Nein.
It's not that a handful of evil men can do evil things. It's that a handful of evil men can convince a large majority of ordinary men to help them do evil things.
Ich bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht für schuldig. Ich bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage für nicht schuldig. Ich bekenne mich nicht schuldig.
Nicht schuldig. Ich bekenne mich keinesfalls schuldig.
Adolf Hitler's rise would have a hold on the German people. They were prepared to follow him loyally and obediently. What he did with that power and how he used it, we shall see.
Awesome. Okay. The former president is still not live. That being said, I'm going to end this show really quickly. And join me on Legion Wire, also Legion Talk. I'm going to set up the Rumble. This one won't have any issues with copyright because it's off Donald Trump's actual, YouTube. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Everybody who commented, everybody who's watching, I will be live again. Literally, again, they're not live yet. So I'm going to end this. I'm going to jump in. We're going to get to it. And I'll see you guys real soon. Appreciate y'all. See you.